trying to figure this out. But I don't know. Hello, and welcome to my third trimester pregnancy update. Oh, the camera is shaking like bananas. Welcome to my third trimester pregnancy update, also known as the only pregnancy update I think I've done in this whole pregnancy so far, aside from just basic like life is happening around us. So first of all, I will say this pregnancy, it's been good. Like the second trimester has been good, and there isn't anything like too dramatic going on, which is really nice. I feel like we've experienced kind of big drama in pregnancy, and we've experienced little drama, and I don't know, I feel like overall this has been a very healthy pregnancy for me so far, which is great. However, my first trimester was probably my worst first trimester, or at least I really blocked the other ones out. But this one was just like very bad, nausea-wise, and it's kind of kicked my butt a little bit. And the main thing I've really learned in my pregnancies is to prioritize my rest and my health, and to take a step back from things that I can take a step back from. I still am a mom and a wife and like those core life things, but I haven't been posting or like showing up on as many social media things because I've needed to give myself a little break. and I think that's one of the reasons why I generally feel relatively healthy in pregnancy. Like, you can't control everything, but I do feel like I really try to be intentional about making sure I'm not overdoing it. I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, I need to learn how to say no, or like, this is how you learn how to say no. And I feel like I know how to say that. Like, I know where my limit is, and I'm comfortable just going like, yeah, I'm at my limit now. I'm not going anymore. So that's a little pat on the back moment and a little like big update as to where I have been. I've been giving myself the rest I need. In this pregnancy, I feel like I've been a little bit more malnourished maybe than past ones. So I've definitely been pretty anemic starting very early on. I had low iron in my blood work first trimester, and I've never had that before. I've definitely had it in the second trimester, but just right off the bat, I was definitely anemic. I take iron supplements. It's been fine. Like, I think I'm just a little bit over the edge of like what qualifies as anemic now, but I do need the supplementation, and I'm really grateful for it and grateful to know, because being anemic feels really awful. You're just very, very drained. And if you are pregnant and you're feeling very, very, very tired, please just ask your doctor for an iron blood test, because anemia is a common answer for that tiredness, as is just basic pregnancy. But if you're feeling like, especially around like 20 weeks, 22 weeks, and you're like, man, all of a sudden I'm getting more tired than usual, that's a very common time for pregnancy anemia to show up. And that has happened to me in the past, but also this time around, I got it in the first trimester. So I've had to be pretty careful about that and making sure that I'm getting enough iron, and then also taking my supplements. The supplements don't bother me. Some people get a lot of like stomach reaction with them, and I'm kind of just fine. Some great news for me is that I did take my gestational diabetes test. I failed my 1 hour. I think I have failed my 1 hour in every single pregnancy that I have had. And I passed the 3 hour, like with flying colors, which is great. Just because anybody can develop gestational diabetes, so I never feel safe from it. And it's not like it's a terrible complication, but it is another thing like on your plate, because you have to do a lot more meal planning and you have to be a lot more aware of what you're eating. I could do it, like, you know, like you make changes, you make sacrifices. However, I was intimidated by the idea of like another thing to keep track of right now. So I'm really grateful that I don't have gestational diabetes. This last week, I started having like kind of high blood pressure readings for me. I've always had very, very typical, I don't want to say low, but like, I don't know, 110, 115 over, I'm guessing 70s, like, I don't know. And this week they started showing up as like 135 over 86. And that isn't an alarming number, apparently. This is what I've learned. However, for me, it was alarming, because I was like, I've never seen those numbers before. And I had been feeling yucky, and that's why we bought the blood pressure monitor, because I had a headache and my feet were feeling really swollen, and I don't get that a lot either in my pregnancies. So I was just kind of like, what's going on? And I got really nervous, and I called my doctor, and my doctor was like, no, it's fine. And then it kept happening. So I was like, I'm still getting really nervous. So I scheduled an appointment with my doctor, and my doctor was like,
It's seriously fine.
He was like, but I'll get you some more blood work, and like, I just want to make sure you know you're fine, but like, you're fine. And so I did the blood work and he said it looked good, but I did have a little like freak out. Like I was very worried just because it wasn't something I'd ever experienced before. So even in my, this is my 6th time being in my 3rd trimester, I could still have freakouts and still have things that are just unknown, Back when you're in your first pregnancy, everything's unknown. And then you kind of start getting a rhythm, your body, what the experience might be like, even if it's still like shockingly uncomfortable when you're experiencing it. But there are also things that like could be totally normal to somebody. Like I'm sure there are tons of people that have that same blood pressure that I had. And they're like, yeah, that's my normal, like that's no big deal. But for me, because it was new, I was panicking. Like I had trouble sleeping for several days. Like I was very worried. Every person in this world is learning and has something to learn. And it was definitely something that I experienced this last week about myself. It was a new thing. So my first trimester was really, really rough. And then my second trimester was pretty good. It kind of like zoomed past and I felt in the moment like, okay, this is going pretty well. And then right now, I'm starting to feel like my skin's a little maxed out. Like the baby pokes here and it feels like we're done. I feel like my skin is breaking apart. It hurts. I'm not at like the worst aches and pains. I usually get a lot of like extreme pelvic girdle pain and I'm not feeling that yet, but I'm starting to feel like pressure, like a lot of heaviness and like that pain is about to begin. So I'm like anticipating it and being grateful for not having it. Feeling just like, it's like a lot. Like it's a lot of belly to carry and move around and just like all of it feels like kind of a lot for the next 2 months plus. But I also am aware that it's gonna get harder. Because I don't know. Like I'm grateful for where I am. It feels like a lot. I know it's gonna be more. I wanted to give just kind of an idea of what this pregnancy has been like for my memories and then also to update any of you guys who are maybe pregnant now or thinking about being pregnant or just interested. But then I also got some great questions on Twitter and on Instagram and I'm gonna look at those as well. Okay, so I have the question, what is it like to be pregnant during the COVID-19 pandemic? Right now, California is at the point where we're still in it. We are still very much like staying at home and masked when we're in public spaces and things like that. However, I feel safe going to my doctor's office. I know that my doctor and everybody who sees me is vaccinated. I'm able to have Christopher with me at my appointments, which I'm so grateful for. Also right now, they're allowing him to be like in the delivery room when I do have the baby. So I feel like there aren't a lot of things that are different for me, aside from making sure that I'm being extra careful about like exposure risks and things like that. And then also, I'm just like not even thinking about a baby shower. And I know baby number 6, a lot of people don't do baby showers after even baby number 1. But I've always wanted to have a baby shower for each of my babies because I think every single baby is worth celebrating. And I've always said I would feel really awful for a baby to like not have that thing where I go, oh look, this was your baby shower, everybody celebrated you. But this time around, I'm just not even thinking about it. We are very well equipped when we have been for a long time, so I'm not concerned about stuff because a lot of people get gifts at baby showers. It's more the like celebration of the person, but I think that it's fine that this is just a different time and this little guy is very celebrated. We're just not even thinking about having a shower, like, that's fine. My battery died, but hopefully I still have a similar angle. The other big thing for me was deciding whether or not to get the vaccine. For a long time in the pregnancy, I had decided I was gonna wait, maybe see if more information came out while I was pregnant, and I had been waiting. Christopher got vaccinated and I waited, and then Bailey got her first vaccination and I waited, and then I decided to get it. So I've gotten my first dose and it was fine. I'm mostly concerned about like long-term effects on the baby, like just that we don't know anything about that. However, I talked to my OBGYN and my like perinatologist specialist every single time I saw them, and I was like, okay, give me info, what are the updates, what do you think now? And at first my OB was like, yeah, I could see why you particularly aren't getting it because we're very quarantined. We have so many small children that can't get the vaccination that we're just pretty much really still staying at home, and we have a little quarantine pod and we've just been sticking with that. I don't have like a high risk job or other exposures. So we were like, yeah, we'll wait. And then more recently, he's been like, actually, you know what? I'm seeing such good things about it. Like, I think you should really get it. And we've talked about antibodies and kind of like weighed the pros and cons there. So I did get the first vaccine. So that was like, I feel like one of the bigger differences, just really debating that. So we're trying to make the best choice. Hopefully we have. I am really excited in general that we're getting to this tipping point in the vaccinations and that people are getting more protection from the COVID virus. So I have another question. How do you think Luke will adapt? I have no idea. I hope he gets what's going on. I've like sat with him and I've like showed him videos and like showing him babies and tummies and all that sort of thing. I feel like it's tricky because he's not that verbal right now. He can communicate with signs and with some verbal communication, but it's a lot less than any of my other kids. Even though I've had kids that are like the same age gap, I can't really tell for sure. I hope he knows that like I'm growing a baby. I wonder, like just about every day I try to go like, there's a baby in here, and I'm like showing him babies, and I don't know. I have no idea what to expect. I do know that he is like the most loving little guy in the world. Like he's so loving and so sweet. So I think he's gonna be excited. I think it's gonna be really special. All the other kids are like out of their minds so excited. So that's usually contagious. I feel like that trickles down. And I think Luke's gonna be really happy and really like the best big brother ever. And they're gonna grow up and be like total buddies. But I also don't know. Do you feel sad knowing that this might be your last pregnancy? Does it feel different than your others? This is kind of a tricky question because right now I feel somewhat at peace with the idea of this being my last pregnancy. And I don't know that it will be, but like for the first time I feel more like, okay. Also, the first trimester was really hard. I don't totally look forward to going through that again. And in all my past pregnancies, I've gone, how do people ever feel like they're done? Like, I just don't feel that. And I've also had like right away, like, I wanna do this again. I love it so much. And I do feel that, like, I can't wait to be a mom of like a little baby. And like, I can't wait. I'm so excited. I totally would do it again. I just feel kind of okay. And like, all right, maybe this is it. I don't know that I'm always gonna feel that, but like that's kind of where I've been the past several months. And I don't feel like emotional. I don't feel like, oh my gosh, what if this is my last one? And maybe that's because I have this kind of open-ended, like, well, maybe like if it gets to that point, then maybe we'd have another baby. I don't know. There also is this other side to it where like, it probably isn't obvious with having, you know, being on my 6th kid, but we really truly have struggled with infertility since I was 21 years old. So that was when we first discovered that I have PCOS and that I have a hard time getting pregnant and that my whole system is kind of a mess and needs a little assistance. And we've had years of like trying to have a baby and not being able to have a baby, and then trying to have a baby, getting pregnant and losing a baby, and then struggling again to get pregnant. So we've had that experience so many times that I don't think I ever think like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna have another baby or I'm gonna have more. Like I always say like, I don't know if this is my last, just because I don't know what my body can do. So that's another way that this pregnancy is different and totally wild. I was 37 when we conceived this baby. And I asked my doctor, I think before I got pregnant with Luke, I think I was like 34, and I was like, hey, so I'm getting close to 35. Is there an issue with like age? Are there any concerns for the baby or anything else? The doctor said, no, like even until you're 40 or so, I'm not concerned about the baby. When I was growing up, I was always told that after 35, there are a lot more potential issues with a baby. And I guess the research shows now that that's not necessarily true, according to my doctor. So from 35 to 40, my doctor said it actually is a little bit more difficult to conceive. And in my head, I'm like, man, it's already been so difficult for me. Like, who knows if that'll happen? We got pregnant with Luke, and that was difficult. That took over a year. I had a miscarriage, and then it was over a year after the miscarriage that I was able to conceive Luke. And then we were like, oh, let's have another baby. Every baby that I've had a loss after. So in my head, I thought I would likely have another loss. And then it would be hard to conceive initially, and then hard to conceive after that. All those things are like what was going through my head. We actually got pregnant right away, and I didn't have a loss. Like this is my first baby that I've had where we didn't have a loss, and it's like it's wild. Like, and also like this was the time getting pregnant that my doctor said would take a lot longer, and then I didn't know if it would have potentially more risks or what. I'm so grateful and surprised in that way that like everything's been okay. And it's interesting because I get some comments about like Luke and this one being somewhat close together. Honestly, like we got pregnant right away and the pregnancy stuck. Like I wasn't expecting that. And I don't mind the age gap. Like it's actually the same age gap that Bailey and Jacob have. I'm just so grateful for it. Like that was when we felt ready, but also it was like, we thought it would take a lot longer. And I'm just really grateful. Like this is my first experience with it not taking a really long time and not having a very devastating emotional experience within it. Okay, I have the question, have the kids changed at all with you being pregnant so many times and everything that comes with it? I don't totally know what this means, but I will say the one thing the kids know when I'm pregnant is they're usually in charge of helping me hydrate. So they just know, like, I'll be like, can I get some sparkle waters? Can I get some waters? And kids will run to the garage and get me some liquids. I think that's the big, I don't know. Like, they love that I'm pregnant. They love that I'm having a baby. Like, they honestly would have me have babies 100 million times. So there's that. And their big job is basically helping me get water. And even Duncan can do it. And Duncan's like so proud when he does it. And he'll do it. I don't even ask him. Like, he just comes up and he's like, and he's so proud. It's so precious. Let's see. Does baby kick more this time around? I don't think so. He's definitely moving a lot. Like I'm feeling him move all the time. It's weird because I feel it, but like other people don't. I'm like, man, this thing's happening and it's so big and like so special. I mean, they can feel it sometimes, but like it's not like the way that I feel it and the amount that I feel it. And it's just kind of wild to me that that's happening and all this other stuff is happening around me. And they don't even know, but I have like this magical thing like happening inside me, like while everybody else is just living their lives. I do feel him kick a lot. Right now, the most movement I get is a lot lower than usual. So it's like a lot of blah, 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 blah. All the doctor appointments I've gone to, he's already like head down and like ready to go. So I don't know what it would be like if it's his hands. He's like doing this, but that's what it feels like sometimes. It'll be like, blah, 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 blah. What are you doing, dude? So I feel that a lot. And then he does move, but I feel like Luke was flipping like the whole time and I had more fluid. Luke and Duncan, I had polyhydramnios, which is too much amniotic fluid. It wasn't massive amounts, but it was too much and my doctors were like concerned or whatever. But it wasn't that bad. It was a lot when I went into labor and I was squirting water everywhere, but it wasn't the very severe cases of polyhydramnios. Duncan and Luke had a lot more play space. So Luke was like flipping the whole time. He was going head down, head up, head down, head up, like every day. And I've never experienced that with any other babies. So I feel like I was probably having the most movement with him and the most like interesting experience because I just had no idea what he was gonna end at. He was such a little cartwheeler. So this one, I feel like he's like, I'm good. I'm ready to be delivered. I know it's pretty early. I'm just gonna chill here and wait. Ooh, here's an interesting question. Advice on what to do before having kids to prepare for kids. I would just say get really good at your home. And if you're not there and you have kids, you're gonna be okay too. But I feel like getting really good at making fast meals that are healthy, getting good at being organized and decluttered and cleaning and just like being good at that stuff is all to your advantage once you get into baby time. Learning new meals that you can make or like food planning, all that stuff. I think it's easier if you learn it in advance and then when you're like in crunch time of baby, you don't have to think about it as much and learn it as much. I did a lot of my learning that stuff when I was in crunch time of having a baby. So it's doable, like it's doable either way. But I think if you spend time like getting really good at that stuff, it makes your life a little bit easier. The other thing is when I had my first baby, I was like Miss Pregnancy book, pregnancy apps, read them all, read every message board post. And I was like, what baby book should I get? Like, let me start up my baby book collection for when I have the baby. And I had all these books for when I have the baby. Those books never got read, never, ever, ever. Maybe in desperation to like deal with something, I will look up a blog post or try to find like a chapter in a book or a book based on the situation and scenario we're experiencing. But oh my goodness, my brain could not read a book and also have a newborn for my very first time. And also like those books, they're, you know, like dictionaries or something where you're like looking for a subject, and it's helpful, like it's good that it does it, but it's not really a book, like you don't want to read it all the way through. Like you're not reading about having a baby while you're having a baby. At least that was my experience. I couldn't read a baby book while I was in the middle of having a baby. If you actually think you're going to read a baby book, I really recommend you do it while you're pregnant or before you're pregnant, whenever you want. But once I actually had the baby, it was not a time for me to be reading books. And I didn't expect that. I thought I was gonna be reading all the time because that's what I did before the baby. But when the baby came, I no longer read the baby books, even though I read all the pregnancy books a million times over. Read your books before you have the baby. You might not have time when you have a baby, or eyeball energy. Boop, 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 boop. So it says, how do you live with 5 children and pregnant at the same time? That's a funny question. A lot of my kids are older. So I've got Bailey, Jacob, Parker, I think in the kind of older sector. And they're great. Like they're really helpful. The other kids are great too. But I feel like if you only have the experience of having like toddler or preschooler and being pregnant or having another baby, that's a hard time. It is hard for like to have just Duncan and Luke and be pregnant like that. It's hard. I actually love that I'm at this point where I have so many kids because it's somehow easier. You're going up this hill of difficulty and then you're kind of coasting and then it's a little easier. It's still hard. And there are times that I'm just like, okay guys, like I need to lie in bed and you need to figure something out. I can do that, I think, in a more safe way because I have older kids. So I have Bailey's 13, Jacob's almost 12, Parker's 8, and they love spending time with their younger siblings. Like they really enjoy Duncan time and Luke time. So I can kind of go, can you guys watch Winnie the Pooh, please? And I can trust that they'll keep track of Luke and Luke won't be wandering off into a danger zone. It's not something I do all the time, but like I feel like I can do that more than when Bailey and Jacob were my only 2 kids. When I had just Bailey and Jacob, that was so hard. And I feel like it is a little bit easier now. Some things I'm sure aren't that easy and I'm just like not even thinking about it anymore because this is just my life now. Like I have fully adapted to mom life and like having a bunch of children all the time. Also, I was struggling when I had my first and second child with like this change. Like you have a change in yourself and a change in your lifestyle. Now I've just like adapted and this is my life. So I don't expect to be doing anything other than being a mom. Whereas when you're like in your earlier stages, you're kind of like, well, what about this hobby that I do? Or what about this thing that I'm used to doing all the time? And I'm less used to doing things for myself than I was when I first started momming. And then also the older kids are a big help. Like they just are naturally, like even without trying or being assigned to help, like they're naturally like they're an extra pair of eyes. If I'm like, oh, hey, what's so-and-so getting into? They can be like, oh, I see him, there's Duncan and he's doing this. And it's just very helpful. Or they just play together naturally, like they're just having fun, I don't have to ask, and they're just like having a nice time in a room somewhere. The hard thing about having a span of ages in children is that you have both the early risers still. We have like 6:30 a.m. is when Luke, Duncan, and Parker tend to get up. And then we have Jacob and Bailey could really stay up all night long. Like they could stay up till midnight or later. Try to get them not to. Like their bedtime is 9:30, but I feel like they're often up until like 10:30 or even 11. So when Christopher and I first started our parenting journey, it was like 7:30 p.m. was our time. Like we would play board games together. He could work. We could do chores around the house. Like 7:30 was gold. Like you just knew that that was your time every single night. And now that we have this spectrum of ages, we don't have that anymore. Like we're just on from 6:30 until like sometimes it feels like midnight. It's not always midnight, but it feels like it every single night. Christopher like is trying to get his editing in and I'm trying to grab some rest, but it just sort of depends. We also love spending time with the older kids in those evening hours. So that's hard too, because it's like, we'll choose to spend time with them. And then we're like, oh yeah, like we don't have time to do anything else like we used to. So I think that that's different and something we're still figuring out because it is kind of new to us. Like it used to be 7:30, man. That was the time. Okay, I found this one that says, what was the easiest kid to have? And I think that means like labor and delivery. And I will say, I believe it was Luke. He definitely came out in one push. I knew I was in labor, which I didn't ever expect to know, because a lot of times I have like false labor for a really long time. And I'm kind of like, oh, am I in labor? Am I not in labor? And I'm like stressing about it for weeks. And Luke came at 38 weeks. I kind of was worried we were going to the hospital and it was a false alarm, but I was kind of like, well, this feels like it enough that like we probably should go. And I will say, like, I felt like I was in labor. Like, I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning with these feelings, and I took a shower and I was like, man, I really feel like I'm in labor, but like it's 38 weeks, so probably not. And I had just gone to the hospital 2 days earlier and I was 1 centimeter dilated, and they were like, you're nowhere near labor. Like, you're 38 weeks, chill out. There were things stacked against me, but I also was like, I mean, I think I'm in labor. That morning was so weird because everybody was asleep, and it was 5:30, I kind of got ready, but by like 6:30 or so, I woke Christopher up and I was like, I think it might be happening. And he was like, oh, I don't know. And he got me a little snack and he was really sweet about it. Maybe around 7, I was like, okay, like we need to wake up the kids and go to the hospital now. And he was like, you wanna wake up the kids? Like, are you sure? I was like, I know, I feel terrible. Like, what if we're waking them up and dragging them to the hospital and they were all asleep? And I was like, but I think we should. Like, I'm feeling these things, they're pretty close together. So that was weird, but at the same time I was like, I'm pretty sure, dude. Like, here's the thing, the kids and my husband, so excited, so supportive of labor. But I think maybe because I just had the false alarm, like nobody really kind of believed me, and they were like, no one wanted to wake up. Like, they did not want to wake up, and they were just like, okay. And like Christopher, when we got to the hospital, he just dropped me off, and then I went to with the kids. I had 3 kids with me. Christopher had Duncan in the car, and he was like, I'll bring Duncan. I was like, okay. So I'm like walking up to the hospital. I'm like having contractions and feeling them. Like, I don't usually feel them a lot. So I was like, I'm feeling something here. I have to stop, like, give me a second. Okay, we can keep moving. And like, I went to the front and they were like, oh yeah, labor and delivery is up there. Usually they offer you a wheelchair. They didn't even offer, nobody thought I was in labor. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't even offer me a wheelchair. Like, but they were just like, yeah, it's up there. You'll be fine. Like, head on up. So I'm like walking with my 3 kids. We run into the pediatrician on the way. We have a conversation. I'm like, yeah, I think I might be making you a patient right now, but I don't know. He's like, okay, we'll see. Basically, I had Luke, I think, an hour after that. Oh, the other thing was, I got into the room with the nurses and I was like, yeah, so I think I might be, I don't know. And they were like, oh, we see you were here 2 days ago and you were 1 centimeter, huh? Like, yeah, I don't know. But I really think I might be. And they checked me and they're like, oh, you're definitely in labor. You're like past 5 centimeters already. And in that moment, the kids were like, what? Like, it was so funny because I don't think any of us, including myself, like really believed it was happening. The kids flipped out. They were so excited in that moment. They just really did not think I was gonna have a baby that day. And having them like flip moods so fast, they were like, oh, she's having a baby. They were so excited. And then the baby came so fast. And it was beautiful. It was like a symphony. I just showed up to have the baby, and then they're like, here's the doctor, let's check you out. He was like, yeah, let's just break your water. And then they were like, okay, it's breaking. And then it was like every contraction was like another centimeter I was dilated. So I just went so fast. Nobody else was there to help with the kids because we hadn't called anybody because it was early. And then we called people and we were like, I'm having the baby right now. And then I had the baby like right then. So all the kids were in the room except for Duncan. He got pulled out like at the very last second. He could have been there, but it was just like, we didn't know what was going on. So they grabbed him. I pushed and I was like pushing and they were like, okay, and push the rest. And it wasn't like 2 pushes. It was like 1 long kind of pausey, okay, go for it push. And he popped right out. He was also my smallest baby and my 5th baby. So he was just like primed for popping right out, and that's what he did. I don't know, it's just so funny. It was such a funny experience. And I feel like I knew I was in labor more than my other times. Like, I feel like the way I'm describing it is kind of me being unsure, but I was so unsure because I had never really been sure of being in labor before, except for the time when my water broke with Duncan because that's an automatic, like, get the baby out situation. And yeah, that was really it. So I don't know. Okay, I'm so excited about this. I really do love the labor and delivery day. I'm a little bit intimidated by that painful time because I don't get epidurals usually, except for the once with Bailey. So like, I know I'm gonna have at least a small period of a lot of like pain. So that's a little intimidating, but I always get through it and it's usually really fast. And if I ever am feeling a lot of pain, I welcome the epidural. And now I'm gonna do a little bump modeling for you so we can see how big I am right now. Stuff all over my counter, but here's my this way facing bump. This way facing bump, just such a pregnant. Oh my goodness, third trimester, woohoo!